You ever have one of those moments where you're just minding your own business, living your life, and then, bam, someone comes along and tries to rip it all away? That's where my story starts, on a crisp fall morning at my family's ranch. 3,000 acres of rolling hills and shimmering water nestled against Mirror Lake, when a woman named Deborah Klein, president of the Pineview Heights HOA, stormed through my creaky old gate like she owned the place, waving some fancy-looking document and screaming that my land was now community property. Behind her, a crowd of strangers clutched wads of cash, ready to carve up my family's legacy. Folks I'd never even met, all whipped into a frenzy by her lies. But here's the thing. As I stood there, boots planted firm in the dirt, watching her smug grin, I knew something she didn't. I was holding an ace she could never have seen coming. Let's rewind 6 months. My name's Jacob Tanner, 44 years old, a former robotics engineer who traded cubicles for open skies. I'd inherited the ranch from my grandpa, a stubborn old man who'd always said this land wasn't just dirt and grass. It was our blood, our story, for generations deep. The cedar cabin overlooking the lake wasn't much, but every sunrise, when the water turned to liquid gold, it felt like a promise kept. I spent my days tinkering with drone prototypes for a small logistics startup, working from a cluttered desk with a view of the pines. Life was quiet, simple, until Deborah showed up with her first letter. It was all official looking, stamped with the HOA's logo, claiming my drones were screwing up the neighborhood's Wi-Fi and cell signals. I chuckled at first. My ranch wasn't even in their fancy gated community, and I'd been flying drones for years without a peep. Figured it was just some bored suburbanite flexing her clipboard power. But then the fines started rolling in, $600 a day for violating federal airspace regulations. Federal? That word stuck in my craw. My grandpa had fought off land grabs from oil companies in the 70s, and he always warned me, when folks start throwing around federal like a weapon, they're up to something bigger than a neighborly spat. Deborah didn't let up. Her next letter cited some obscure transportation code, claiming my land fell under a designated safety zone, and that she had buddies in the county office backing her up. I fired back a polite email, explaining my property wasn't under her HOA's thumb, but her response was chilling. She mentioned friends in high places and dropped hints about classified federal projects. That's when the old stories Grandpa told me started creeping back, tales of bureaucrats and developers circling our land like vultures, trying to snatch it through legal tricks. I brushed it off, told myself I was being paranoid, but when she called me one evening, her voice dripping with confidence, I knew this wasn't just HOA nonsense. "Jacob, you're in over your head," she said, like she was savoring every word. "I've got documentation that'll bury you, FAA regulations, national security clauses. You can't fight this." I hung up, heart pounding, staring out at the lake as the sun dipped low, wondering if I was about to lose everything my family had built. That weekend, I climbed into the attic, digging through dusty boxes of Grandpa's papers, deeds, surveys, stuff he'd always said was worth more than gold. Buried under a pile of tax records, I found it, a 1918 deed, yellowed and brittle, with dense legal jargon that made my head spin. One paragraph jumped out like a lightning bolt. It said our family still held the original railway easement rights from when the Union Pacific ran through here, meaning every utility line, every gas pipe, every fiber optic cable feeding Pineview Heights was technically on our land. They'd been using it for free for decades, without a single royalty paid. My pulse raced as I realized what I had. Leverage, real leverage. I called up Sarah Whitaker, a real estate lawyer I found online, and when I showed her the deed, her eyes lit up. "Jacob, this isn't just a deed," she said, spreading it across her desk. "You own the arteries of that entire neighborhood. And, hold on, there's talk of a high-speed rail project coming through this county. Deborah's push smells like she knows something you don't." Sarah's words hit me like a freight train. A rail project? That explained Deborah's cocky attitude, her government connections. She wasn't just a nosy HOA tyrant. She was a pawn in something massive. I started noticing things, strange cars parked near my property line, drones, not mine, buzzing over the ranch at night. Then came the HOA's big move. Deborah called an emergency meeting at the Pineview Community Center, complete with a slick PowerPoint titled Tanner's Drone Threat. She'd hired some creep with a telephoto lens to film my tests, editing the footage to make my little prototypes look like CIA spy gear. Jacob Tanner's endangering your kids, your property values, your safety, she bellowed to a room full of nervous neighbors, most of whom I'd never met. She played up the fear, foreign espionage, data theft, the works, until people were signing petitions to have me kicked out as a security risk. I sat in the back, quiet, watching her performance, until I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, holding the deed like a loaded gun. "Folks," I said, voice steady despite the glares. "You know who owns the power lines keeping your AC running? The internet you're tweeting about me on? That's right, my family. This deed says so. You've been squatting on our easements for years." The room went dead silent. Deborah's face twitched, her papers trembling in her hands. That's nonsense," she stammered. "Those are county utilities." But I read the deed aloud, word for word, and watched the crowd's anger turn to confusion, then worry. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Sarah's playing you. Check her clients. Ask why Deborah's so desperate now." My stomach dropped. I hired a PI, a no-nonsense woman named Rachel Cole, who dug into Sarah's finances. Sure enough, Sarah had been feeding my plans to Deborah through a shady shell company tied to developers. The betrayal stung, but it confirmed what I'd feared. This wasn't just about me. I fired Sarah, retrieved my documents, and brought in Tom Brennan, a property rights lawyer with a personal grudge. Deborah's name came up when my mom lost her farm to a scam like this. Tom said, his jaw tight. "It broke her. I'm in this to bury them, Jacob." Tom pored over the deed and found something Sarah had missed or hidden. Mineral rights that could demand millions if anyone tried to seize my land. He grinned like a wolf. "We've got them cornered. Let's make Deborah panic." Our plan was simple but devious. We leaked a fake story about a $30 million deal with a telecom company for 5G towers on my ranch, big enough to mess with whatever Deborah's bosses were planning. Tom's buddy posed as a telecom exec, complete with a shiny website and business cards. Within days, Deborah took the bait. In a recorded call, she ranted about her federal contacts and let slip a bombshell. "This area's locked for a rail corridor. Your towers will be seized by eminent domain in a year. You're wasting your time." My blood ran cold. A high-speed rail project, classified, worth billions, and my ranch was the linchpin. Tom's research tied Deborah to Councilman Victor Hayes, a slick politician orchestrating land grabs across 3 states. They'd been buying up properties dirt cheap, knowing the rail plans would skyrocket their value once announced. A kid from Pineview, Matt Carson, reached out next. He was 23, a biology grad who'd been asking questions about Deborah's HOA strong-arming. "She's threatening people with crazy fees if they don't sign her petitions," he whispered over coffee at a diner miles away. My uncle was a surveyor who died in a weird crash after refusing to fake reports for Hayes' crew. Matt handed me recordings from secret HOA meetings where Deborah bragged about fixing the Tanner problem with her federal partners. It was chilling, her voice calm, calculated, like she'd done this before. Tom and I used the recordings to build a case, but Deborah doubled down. She announced a community land auction, claiming my ranch was abandoned and up for grabs. She'd hired a forger, Greg Holt, to whip up fake deeds and county stamps, convincing folks they could buy chunks of my land for pennies. I watched it all through my drone cameras. Every shady meeting, every cash exchange, stored on secure servers. Tom had been working with an FBI agent, Emily Ruiz, who'd been tracking Hayes' network for years. The auction was our trap. As Deborah collected cash from gullible neighbors, Emily's team swooped in. "You're done, Deborah," I said, stepping into the community center with sheriffs at my side.